Hi, guys. Welcome to Own Your Essence, the podcast where healing meets empowerment. I'm your host, April DeMille, a psychic medium and a life coach specializing in grief, trauma, and toxic relationship recovery. This is a space for deep conversations, powerful transformations, and raw healing. Each week, we'll dive into soul centered topics like psychic mediumship, the supernatural, metaphysical wisdom, emotional grief, addiction, mental health, spiritual wellness, and self discovery. Through inspiring interviews and personal insights, this podcast is here to spread awareness, spark connection, and support your healing journey. If you're ready to set boundaries, reclaim your confidence, and step into your true power, you're in the right place. Let's own your essence together. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Own Your Essence podcast, where we get to have deep transformational conversations with some of our favorite people. I am your host, April DeMille, and today, please help me welcome our guest. Her name is Tatjana Genys. She is a conscious entrepreneur and author, I think 4 books, and the founder of the company, The Art and Science of Choosing You. So, hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for being here. So, Tatiana, I just read your introduction, but you created a company called The Art and Science of Choosing You, and you left corporate world, right?
You're right.
Yeah. How long were you in corporate world before you made that transition?
Yeah, nearly 15 years. A big chunk of my past life, as I now like to call it.
Yeah, yeah. Can you tell me what you did in corporate world?
Absolutely. Towards the end of it, I was doing two different things. I was a senior director for a large multinational IT research company, working primarily on the strategy side. So I was running a division across Europe, Asia Pacific, and then later emerging markets. And then I was also board of director of a charity firm because I think before I left both behind, I was hoping that maybe if I transitioned from one into the other, it would be much more closely aligned to mission.
Yeah. Okay. That's a lot. So,
That's a lot, definitely.
yeah, and so what was that defining moment that like you were like, okay, I'm leaving corporate and completely shifting gears here?
Yeah, I love that question. You know what? I think there's probably many milestones in my life, and I look at every aspect in my life now in chapters, maybe because I write books for a living now, but I look at pre-corporate and post-corporate, and I look at pre-divorce and post-divorce, and maybe even pre-books and post-books as segments of who I needed to become. So I think the big part for me in corporate, wearing those two really big hats that I worked a lifetime for achieving. And I was so proud for a really long time of how far I had come that I didn't really realize how lost I got on that transition. So maybe if I even draw parallels between my private, personal, and my business life, I think it was when I was really out of alignment. So I was borderline depressed. I was burned out at a time. There was a very specific moment where I actually didn't want to get out of bed. And at that time, I was also the mother of a 9-year-old who's now nearly 16. So there was a moment where I really had to re-look at my life and question the direction where I was heading, because as much as everything in my life looked perfect on paper, on the inside it was everything but. So I think that was the segue, the decision point, that if I didn't want my life to continue that way for the next 40 years, I really needed to change something there and then. So it was the end and also the beginning in
Yeah.
one way.
Yeah, I love that. So when you talk about being out of alignment, can you
Mhm.
expand on that a little bit? Because then a lot of people might not know what that looks like, or what it feels like, rather. And you talked about, dealing with some depression and things like that. So how else did that show up for you?
Love that question. You know, I spent the last 9 years dedicating my life to healing, and that was exactly the question I wanted to answer of how can I help others who feel in the same boat?
Right.
To me, it had so many different layers and facets. Some days it was hopelessness. Sometimes when I was in overwhelm, it was anxiety, and depressed is actually the feeling of nothing.
Right.
So I lost joy. I didn't want to go out and do anything outside of work. I'm actually quite an extroverted person. I love people, but I lost that love for others.
Yeah.
I don't think I was experiencing joy in myself, and I was just wiped. I think when I left the corporate world, it took me 9 months to get back on my feet. Why so many of my somatic practices later came down the line. So it can look like anything for you: loss of purpose, loss of joy, loss of abundance.
Yeah.
It comes in lots of different shapes and forms. So I guess if I was thinking about whoever is experiencing it right now, whatever that looks like for you,
Mhm.
it actually, it's less a question of how you define it and more how do I get myself out of it. Like,
Yeah.
what's one step I can take today, tomorrow, next week that will bring me closer to fulfillment, purpose,
Yeah.
laughter, joy.
Well, and maybe you got lucky. Were you able to catch it before it turned into like health issues?
I don't know if I would call it lucky, because I think at that point I was so desperate. I tried pretty much everything. And maybe the lucky part is that I had my baby boy, who is
Yeah.
my love and light and my everything.
Yeah.
So I think if I didn't have him, it would have been a really slippery slope, because the thoughts I was experiencing in that moment were really not healthy. But what that meant was I was trying to find a solution. So
Yeah.
I started with mental work, and I hired a coach. I sat in a monastery in Bhutan. I went to the jungle in the Amazon and tried all sorts of things. I did trauma informed practices with Dr. Gabor. I then found myself in somatic work.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes it's trial and error, and just not giving up. I
Yeah.
think what I deeply believed in was that there had to be a better way,
Yeah.
and that I just hadn't found it yet.
Right. Yeah. And at least you had that little light, that little spark in you saying, keep going. It's going to get better.
Absolutely. And also, I don't want to make it sound all doom, hey, because somewhere along that path, I got addicted to human psychology, like why I'm studying so many trauma-informed practices now. And then when I started finding all these modalities, like sitting in the mountains of Bhutan with the monks, listening to them chanting,
Oh,
one of
wow.
my favorite experiences of all time. And then somewhere in between, my creativity started to rise.
Yeah.
So I think that's when the turning point started coming, because what I understood or learned was that I had actually forgotten about myself. And
Yeah.
maybe the part that was fighting so much inside me, I actually described that part in one of my books, is the part that hadn't given up on me yet.
Yeah.
And that was really like fighting for like pleasure and joy, and maybe being a little bit stubborn that this isn't going to be where life is going to end, but that this is really just the road it's going to take to purpose and fulfillment.
Yeah.
Why I'm now so passionate about that
Yeah.
topic.
Well, and I even described that phase as like an integration phase, right? It's like when you're in the cocoon and you're getting ready to like burst out of it. And it feels like despondence and death and grief and all the things that feel like shit, feels yucky. And you're like,
Yeah.
can I just fucking get on with it, please? But like, it really does serve a purpose for you to be in that place. And when burnout takes up so much space in your life, then it takes a while for you to heal that and make space for the creation to happen.
Love that, because it's messy, right?
Yeah,
Whether
it's
you're
so
turning
messy.
into a butterfly, like I
Yeah.
think that the piece that I describe the most is probably loss. And that's loss of like one identity as you're shaping into another.
Yeah.
And it's the discomfort that you don't know what's on the other side yet, but there's
Yeah.
hope. And I actually summarized, like at some point, about 2 years in or 3 years in, poetry started to come. So the messiness of the process, I actually describe in one of my books that I called Find Your Center, Because what I learned in that process is that's a shedding of somebody else's beliefs and somebody else's visions of how your life is meant to be, or some version of a woman you're meant to represent. And then in hindsight, I look back at my life and I went, I've always been different. I was the girl that was having lots of dreadlocks and but wearing them with heels. And now I've got tattoos up my sleeve because that's my healing journey. And that's where creativity is born. But I love the process that you describe, because in that process, it's so easy in a way to just I say that really lightly, give up on yourself and go back to what you know. But with that, you actually lose out on the potential to see who you could become on the other side. So I love everything that you describe, because even the period afterwards, if this is integration, for me, the next part became recovery. And what I had to learn in that process was, once you burned out, your capacity to still keep pushing hard changes. And that's where the deep inner child work for me began, to then go with, okay, 9 months down the line, all those practices later. It sounds a lot in my world. It doesn't have to be as long and complex for others. But how can I be really loving to myself as I'm going on that next stage of my journey? And how can I do that with me at my pace, learning from where things broke down? And that's the beginning of my signature program and where that led me afterwards, but a story for another day.
Well, and I also love how you were in utero for 9 months.
Yeah.
Like, how perfect is that?
I
Uh,
never thought of it that way. I
yeah,
love
like
that.
I'm like, that just is so perfect. But also, if you're a control freak or anything like I am, right? Like we want to know. We want to be in the knowing. We don't like uncertainty because our fears take over and then we create stories and spin out. And a lot of us, you have to have that control, right? And so
Absolutely.
releasing that and the attachment to outcomes is so challenging, is really hard to
Yeah.
do.
I love that you touched on it, because it's these days I visualize myself actually taking out the bad
Yeah.
and putting it to the side. And when I'm coming into that mode of fear or resentment or judgment or control, like big emotions, I also had to work through a ton of people pleasing, which
Yeah.
whole different redirection of how you look at your life. I actually put it aside and then I visualize. And I actually just talk to myself. I can see you're scared now, and I can see why you want to control that. And I can
Mhm.
see how in the past it served you. But can we just hold you in that for a moment? It's super scary what you're doing. And I'm
Yeah.
so freaking proud of you that you're still trying and actually could transmute it or convert it in something that's working with me rather than against me. Because I think for the longest time I was the judge and I was the hammer and I was on the hangman line waiting for my execution, no with no return. So yeah, thank you for bringing up that point.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the questions I wrote down too was, when you were in corporate, was there a certain pattern, like toxic pattern, that you saw the most of, and what was it?
Oh, I love that question. I actually spent a lot of time on that topic when I was in the mountains of Bhutan.
Okay.
And that's where one of my talks generated, that is now about conscious leadership and what the monks of Bhutan taught me about leadership. Because what I realized is in corporate, there's a lot of behaviors that now I won't lie. And there's some political situations and there's some hardship that you just need to regenerate. And depending on the person you are, it either lights you up or it doesn't.
Yeah.
I think the piece that I was missing the most, and I had epic examples of leadership, but more conscious leadership, and specifically focused on individuals who are going through a hard time. So, as a result of it, I don't know if that 100% answers your question, but as a result of it, what I started working with corporates on now is actually conscious leadership beginning to end. So it starts at the hiring process and hiring for mission, for vision, and for all the things you need to accomplish. It's focused on nervous system regulation at extremely busy workplaces, all the way down to conscious firing. Because even that can be done in a really mindful way, that if you can't take away that somebody needs to be leaving the organization, you can do it in a way that's really human. And it's
Hmm.
human to the leadership team who has to deliver that message, actually preparing them in the right way. And that's human to the individual receiving the message. So when they come home, they don't extend that to their families. So I think it's more about the elevation that I'm missing, especially now with all the developments of tools and AI and the direction we're going there is how do you still ensure connectivity, and with rising rates of loneliness, depression, suicide rates, how can you still reach your employees on a really human level and connect with them in a way that they deserve? I
Hmm.
think that's the opportunities I saw later on, maybe like using the example of when you're in that cocoon,
Yeah.
mashing it all together, thinking about why did I have two so different experiences, and how can one now support the other with what I was missing back then.
Yeah.
So would it have changed my trajectory? Would I have stayed longer in the organization? I honestly don't know. I've really found my feet, my path, the way my neurodivergent brain works
Yeah.
in running my own company and a million other things. But could it potentially save others that are very comfortable in a job that's secure and that's hard faced for them? Potentially, that's the hope.
Yeah. Well, it's a great hope. It's a great mission. So when we talk about consciousness,
Mm,
um, can you expand on what that means to you and how it shows up in your daily life?
love that question. Oh my gosh, where do I start unpacking?
Yeah, go for it, girl.
Achievement. So I'm going to grossly simplify it
Okay.
first,
Okay.
because the same way I believe leadership starts around the kitchen table, I actually genuinely believe that consciousness is presence.
Okay.
It's in every conversation you have with every person around you. Do you actually see them? Can you see what's on their plate? Can you see what's going in their life? Can you sometimes step away to actually observe before you're responding? Consciousness means being present to what's happening in your own internal world. And that to me is now a daily practice. Before I get out of bed, I hold myself, my inner child, with whatever became present in my dream state, how I woke up. Maybe I connected somewhere wise them, I was in a different ether, all the way to consciousness when it comes to spirituality and connection you have with whatever form of divinity you align to. So I think it's got so many layers. And for me these days, that's anywhere from upper to underworld to shamanic practices to really deep, deep connection to Mama Earth and everything it represents. But if I wanted to grossly simplify it for anybody who's literally just starting out, it's start with the next conversation you have. It's come home to your family and actually spend time around the kitchen table.
Mhm.
Put your phone away and ask them a question you never asked before. Dig deep to really understand why they care about a certain topics. That's when we bring spirituality to life, and that's when we embody what we teach. So whether you're in the office or at your home side table with your partner, with your spouse, with your kitty cat, it actually really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's what consciousness is to me these
Yeah.
days.
Being able to humanize, stay present, and be relatable.
Totally be seen. Hey,
Yeah.
warts and all, because I think sometimes we over glorify the picture we need to paint. Just being real,
Yeah.
honest, authentic, vulnerable, share.
I even noticed yesterday, and this is a more, I guess this is a smaller level or version of consciousness, but like yesterday, I had a situation where my day just went like all day, like with the holidays and all the things, like it's just go, go, go. And I'm like, holy fuck, dude, could things just slow down for a second? I haven't even had a minute to breathe today. And oh my God, I'm getting edgy, right? Like I'm getting shitty
Mm,
about it, right? And so
yeah.
yesterday, I think it was yesterday afternoon, I'd gotten to a place right around 3 or 4 o'clock, and I was like, okay, in my mind, I really just want to like crawl in bed, be cozy, watch movies, play on my phone, do absolutely fucking nothing because that's what my body needed. But I kept trying to go, but I have this schedule and I have to do this and this and this. And so I got up and I was trying to do the thing that in my mind I had scheduled. And it really pissed me off because I was betraying myself. And I was
Love
like, hold on a second. I'm getting super moody. and I'm getting really ornery here. Let me just go crawl my ass back in bed because my body's saying no. It is absolutely saying no. And so I had to stop like trying to push myself to do the things and do the schedules and all and just be. And if I wasn't going to do that, I was going to be shitty about it.
Yeah, I love that so much because you are aware at a new level.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, and that's actually the part that I describe in my boundary book.
Ah,
It's
nice.
actually the piece that I really had to learn because at that point I was still such a people pleaser. So hats off to you, and I really want to hold you in. I noticed something was off. I didn't do what I wanted to do because stuff needs to be done. So many people would have stayed in that, and that's your pathway to burnout. Whilst that resentment that came up, that's your inner fighting spirit. So I love everything about it. I guess that was also one of the reasons why I created the Conscious Reset Academy that became my signature program. And that's literally because it's those moments where you go, life is becoming busier. There's the holidays and there's kids and there's appointments. Where now, as a solopreneur, I don't have time to sit 2 weeks in the mountains like I did before or
Right.
go on really long vacations. I don't have the holidays I used to enjoy whilst I was in the corporate world. So then the question became, if I'm getting busier and busier, reacting to what you just said, how can I carve out? Great for the neurodivergent brain. Anybody who needs details, it's definitely not it. How can I ask myself 3 questions? How can I do dance therapy for 1 or 2 songs?
Yeah.
How can I do a 1 minute meditation? So
Yep.
whether you're in the car or like you caught yourself and you climbed into bed, I
Yeah.
absolutely love that for
Yeah.
you.
I had to. I was like, dude, I'm turning into a dick. I've got to get back in bed.
Yeah.
I was like, good night. I'm like done.
Yeah, because what's the counter act if you didn't? Hey, you
Right.
start snapping at
There
people,
you
you
go. That's exactly what it was. I was getting moody. I was getting edgy. I was getting short. And I was like, okay, clearly I need to just go back to bed.
yeah, and those are the behaviors like almost similar to what the question you asked around what happens when you're depressed and how do you feel?
Mhm.
Like those are the conversations you later regret with your family, with your spouse, with your children,
Yeah.
when you find yourself that you're actually no longer happy for people. Like they're
Yeah.
sharing something and you go kind of think, I'm bitter in the inside, which is
Yeah.
so unlike you, human, but so unlike you, when you
Right.
suddenly go, yeah, something needs to change. So
Yeah.
I applaud you for climbing back into bed.
Thank you. I needed it. I definitely needed it. Um, I have another question about consciousness though.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how consciousness healing, how what would you say that involves as opposed to clinical healing that often gets missed?
Oh, I love that question. By the way, this is my sweet spot. I can talk about
Oh,
consciousness
good.
all day. So this is my type of podcast. I came to I think came a really long way with that question because the longer I dove into maybe more traditional healing modalities, for a while I challenged medical clinical research
Yeah.
because I was also looking at the stats where I saw there's so much progress when it comes to clinical trials and research and who's benefiting from it and is that actually solving a problem versus numbing it. But now where I'm sitting, and I think that took a stepping away and going through my own health journey, both physical and mental, where I think there's a sweet spot between the two.
Okay.
So all the traditional medicines I call prevention. So anything that is not acutely diagnosed where you need to be hospitalized or you need really like quick support, for those I would always go on the mindful route, whatever that looks like for you. So
Yep.
if there's a combination ideally of a somatic practice and a mental practice and some sort of cleansing cleaning ritual in whatever form that looks like for you,
Okay.
epic. If you're already at that point, and maybe referring back to also the signature program, if you're at a point of burnout already, I can't help you at that point because
Right.
at that point you need significant help.
You need
So that's
massive like
actually
rehabilitation and recovery at that point.
totally, that's
Yeah.
where recovery actually starts.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so passionate about like there's sweet spots where you see changes, like you saw in your behavior of like,
Yeah.
wow, suddenly you're more snappy
Like
than you
catch it
used to be.
before it spins out.
Totally.
Yeah.
So if you're at a place where you're getting negative thoughts, coming back to our earlier conversations, you feel lost and you're questioning your purpose, you feel out of alignment, epic. There's stuff, so much stuff, which for me was anything from starting with meditation, yoga, kundalini, trauma-informed practices, dance therapy. I studied sound, and then the mountains of Bhutan, the jungle. Those were all built on epic. If you're already at a point of the red light is flashing, and if I don't do something now, something bad is going to happen to me, my family, or consequently to both of them.
Yeah.
That's where the clinical side is definitely your go-to first response.
Yeah. So just for the record, this isn't the shoe that fits everyone, but
Yeah,
typically in my mind, I'm like, if you need a surgery or you need your life saved, that's when you see doctors. If
absolutely.
you're looking for a Band-Aid, sure, go see a doctor. They can give you lots of Band-Aids for the problem, but they're not going to help you figure out the root cause of the problem, and that's not really going to help you heal.
Absolutely. I love that. And maybe personalizing it a little bit. I had to have surgery last year after a lot of stuff that I had done on my mind, on my body, why I feel really at peace in my heart. And then when I had to have my own surgery, I think the way I compartmentalized it, could never say the word, in my own brain was, if something will grow unless you fix it, remove it, and then come back to the practices
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it doesn't become a hindrance in your life.
Right.
That's where I think beliefs can otherwise become sometimes limiting.
Yeah.
So adding on the consciousness topic, but yeah, I hope
Yeah.
really hear
Absolutely.
you.
So do you have a top favorite go-to ritual to support your healing? Like, what's your favorite go-to?
Yeah, love that question. I guess it depends on the emotion I'm experiencing. If it's anger, run. So if there's anything hard times related where I know I've got a big hill to climb, I run. I'm not a runner, have never been a runner, but that's the technique I use in those moments only. And they're mindful runs and all sorts of definitions.
Okay.
If I need to get into my body, so anxiety, fear, I need to shift some negative energy, it's dance therapy.
Okay.
If I need to calm my mind, sound. So extended version to your very short question, I think it
Yeah,
really
but
varies
it's true.
on.
It does depend on, I mean, there's factors that play into what that day looks like and what those
Yeah.
emotions are that you're sitting with that day. So that's actually perfect.
Yeah, and if I need a proper cleanse where my mind shuts off, because these days I'm so much in creativity mode, I write content all the time, then it's the ocean, an hour in nature, a bush hike, lighting a candle if I don't have that time, and connecting to the element of fire.
Mhm.
And so just shedding lots of different emotions that way.
Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to shift a little bit and talk a little bit about conscious parenting. I think this is a great subject because I'm also a parent. So I would love to
Oh,
dig into that a little bit.
how old is your child, if I may ask?
So I had four. One is on the other side, and I have three that are still here. So 25, 22, and 18. Mine are
Wow,
all
can I just
mine are
pay you a
all big
compliment?
kids.
You don't look it, but I love the question.
Oh,
What's the
thank
question
you.
behind the question?
So I want to talk about conscious parenting when it comes to self-worth and emotional regulation.
Oh, love it. Yes.
Yeah.
General thoughts on self-worth and emotional regulations when it
Yeah.
comes to
I mean,
parenting.
especially like with self-worth when it comes to a world that like makes so much money off of people's insecurities, we can dig into that one.
Yeah,
And like
love.
how can we, prepare our kids for feeling valued in a world like that.
Yeah, beautiful. Because also anxiety in teenage children is so much on the rise, and a lot of behaviors, like social behaviors, are really coming short.
Yeah.
And I think that's a combination. The combination of the two makes really not confident children. So I guess if I draw parallels from my boy, and I will probably look at different snapshots in his life, Initially, it was enabling the skills where I saw he had the biggest opportunities. So my boy, he's an incredibly bright kid, beautiful heart. Motor skills initially came a little bit harder. So it was looking for ways how I can develop them. So build a table together or fix things, even in separated households. So I wouldn't outsource those tasks. But I also once read that the confidence of the child is dependent on the self worth of his mother. And
Mhm.
in hindsight, if I look at anything in my healing journey, I think it's absolutely right, because what my child got to witness as a result of it was me shifting from a really insecure woman who was trying to please all her way and who was trying to prove herself all the time to somebody who's got really strong boundaries. And when I saw that strength emerging with me, I think the mistake I initially made when it came to conscious parenting was I was trying to teach him and take him on the journey with me. And what I learned afterwards is that when I let go of control
Mhm.
and I didn't try to force him into my journey, he came on that journey with me himself.
Yeah.
So then he started seeing a lot of mindful practices in my home and he started asking questions.
Mhm.
And suddenly the things I didn't think about twice because they came naturally to me, he said, "Hey, by the way, why did you do that?" And that became a conscious moment. And then it's also aligning with stages they go through their life. And with that, I mean anything from now. I looked at his CV with him and I looked at a couple of things that he outlined. So he's turning 16. And I actually asked him, "Is that something that's really important to you? Or do you want to put everything out there that you generally care about and show your most authentic side?" Because then selling yourself becomes easy when you're in an interview because you're just speaking your truth, all the way to having the conversation before we go into the holidays and before he gets older of what conscious drinking looks like.
Yeah.
And that comes in through an angle of I don't think I was ever taught of what conscious drinking, responsible drinking actually looks like. Here are some tips based on my experience of things I've done right and things I've done wrong that I can recommend, all the way to when you catch them when they come home from school and you can see they're carrying so much, like they're carrying so much these days with them expectations that are put on them at school. It's teaching them techniques. Light a candle beside them that can eat the negative energy. Allow them a moment to land, like actually land, so you don't have to put on a face and, "Kiddo, it's okay, you don't have to agree with me."
Yeah.
Allowing them to find their voice. So I think there's
Yeah.
so many layers of it, but actually just listening to your child, putting your phone away and being present with who they're becoming, I think that's your fastest way forward in my view. But I'd love your thoughts equally
Yeah.
as
I
a
mean,
mom of
with
three.
I'm kind of entering, I mean, I'm entering and been in, that empty nesters phase. And my kids unfortunately had to go through a lot of trauma and hardship and loss with me, um, through my journey as well. And so they've seen me also go from a place of addiction, homelessness, people pleasing, codependence, all the things, um, begging for approval, begging to be seen, to the version that I am now and the one that can, help support them and nurture them when they have needs and have a need of guidance and allow the guidance, because that's the thing is, you know, um, I guess I was always taught that it's tradition and you respect your elders. No, the fuck you don't. Respect's not just handed out freely. Fuck off. That's not how
And
this works.
sometimes it shouldn't be. Hey, there's some
No.
really wrong behaviors you're
Yeah.
excusing with that.
Well, right, because when your abusers are the ones that demand respect because they're your elders, like, no, fuck off. What kind of
Yeah.
outdated mindset is this? Like, so it's unlearning. More than anything, it's like unlearning and allowing your kids to have their voice, right? Like they have their own voice and they have their own journey and their own mission. And we're lucky we get to be involved in that. What a huge honor
Absolutely.
that we get to come along.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I have a lot of similar thoughts on that.
Absolutely. And can I just honor you for how vulnerably you shared everything and actually the journey you've been through? But if I can look at it from an outsider lens looking in, what you taught your children about is actually what's really important in life, and that's grief. That's when
Hmm.
family comes together when things aren't great.
Right.
Because the second talk I talk about is conscious families, how to make a family whole
Right.
after disruption. It's easy to fall in love with that picture perfect family, but
Hmm.
realistically, nobody has it. Like there are a few exceptions, but nobody has that picture perfect family. And if I teach my son anything, is that he can come to me when things get hard. He
Yeah.
can call me when he's lost and frustrated and angry and when the world doesn't make sense, when everything on paper looks perfect, but you actually don't know what's behind it.
Hmm.
Because I look at like suicide rates growing, and because I'm so addicted to mental health now, I see where we are heading and what we see in real life. That's
Yeah.
why I love those real life conversations and actually meeting people where they're at, because it's messy, it's
Yeah.
ugly. Sometimes it's divorce, sometimes it's abuse, sometimes it's trauma. And then through those experiences together, that you asked about conscious parenting, that's where your parenting really comes to shine. That's where your
Yeah.
family gets to come together and step up. So well done, Mama. Hey, for fighting through all those things whilst raising three children. That's insane. I only have one. Kudos for
Thank you.
what you carried.
Well, and you bring up a really good topic too with like conscious family support, right? Because in those moments, I know that like when we experience the most traumatic loss in all of our lives, for me and my children, we, you would just think that that's when your family would come together to support you the most. Absolutely not what happened at all. In fact, those motherfuckers became my worst nightmare. um, they they were the first to turn their back on me and shame me for not doing better, or shame on you, you have other kids and blah blah blah, you should, but not one of them had a fucking clue about what they were talking about and how to live life after losing a child. Not
Yeah.
one of them. So it's funny that they thought that they had an opinion about it at all, but those were the ones that should have been there to kind of help lift me up, and that's not what happened at all.
Yeah.
Luckily, there's been some healing in the family dynamics, and we've been able to come together differently. And now that I have a better understanding of what I was going through, then I can explain my needs. I can explain my expectations, and I can demand, with my line in the sand of what I will tolerate and what I will not. But before, when I was in trauma brain, I didn't have the words. I didn't have the understanding. I was full blown PTSD and wanted to die. So like,
Totally.
yeah. So
Totally. Yeah, please continue.
it's just really important that you're doing what you're doing, putting, the books out, spreading the awareness for even family support and things like that.
Yeah, and making it okay. So I
Hmm.
actually wanted to comment on, I have so much compassion for you and for anybody who's inside that storm, because all these great practices, that version of you was born in that moment.
Totally.
That's the messy part we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
But in that moment, we talked about feelings earlier. It feels so much like shame and abundance, and like abundance of feeling like a failure, that you're doing everything wrong. I
Right.
questioned every single thing I did. So you become your own biggest critic. That's
Totally.
why I'm so passionate about, on the other side, is peace. That's where your boundaries are formed. And that's when you ask, like, this is what I need. And you give context, like, here's why I just responded in that way. And here's what would really help. But
Hmm.
the challenge with the process you describe, people really don't know how to deal with grief
Mm-mm.
unless you've lost something that was so important for you. And that's grief of like loss of your dreams and loss of your relationship. And gosh, if you lost a human being that was so important to you, that's next level grief of what it means to carry that.
Yeah.
Why I salute, like there's a beautiful girlfriend, I'm gonna give her free credit here, but she holds grief ceremonies specifically for people who can come together and be seen and witnessed in their grief.
So I
And
think you just clarified something for me, because like I just had this conversation a week ago with another lady that had lost a child, and I said, "Hey, what are your thoughts on creating a grief community for parents that have
beautiful.
lost a child?" So I feel like I needed to hear that right now.
Yeah, beautiful. Please do, because I think there's
Mm-hmm.
so many, like so many individuals, regardless of what your challenge, that are
Mm-hmm.
fighting it on their own.
Yeah.
And I think the message that I want to come back to is always you are not alone in this. And what it brought, and I hope that's what it brought in your life, is also the best community around me now.
Yeah.
Because now I really focus on a lot of the people that had to go left went,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a blessing,
Oh,
and that's where
totally.
the strength comes out. Hey, and then you're very conscious and present with the people you have around who build you up and who
Mm-hmm.
are going to come in that fire with you and lift things up for you and help you in that messiness,
Yeah.
that you surround yourself with those. And maybe coming back to the conscious parenting piece, it's also the conversation I had to have with my son at that point was never outsource your happiness to anybody. So
Right.
your job this lifetime is to make sure that that space between your ears is taken care of,
Yeah.
whatever you need for it. So the questions you need to ask yourself in that moment is just to get yourself through it,
Yeah.
just for today, just for the next hour, just for the next 2 weeks, and then see what's on the other side, and
Yeah.
not be shy to ask for help. So please
Yeah.
launch that group, help
Yeah.
other moms, and hey, spread your word, turn pain into purpose.
Yeah. Thank you. I will be looking forward to doing that after the turn of the year, I think. So I think it'll be a
Woohoo!
good thing to
Roll
do.
on 2026.
Yeah, for real. Well, and I asked the lady, I said, listen, I think there was a time I considered doing it years ago, but I was not in the place. Um,
Yeah,
but I am in the place now. And we talked about it last week, and she had lost a child too. And so I was like, look, would you have any interest in, creating this type of space together? And she was like, absolutely. And I have a lot of people that are around me that have lost children or had that kind of intense grief. And so I think it's definitely a need.
yeah. And you know what I love about it, even though it's the hardest thing you went through, is how you allowed it space. Because I think with any healing modalities, when you haven't healed it yet, you can sometimes cause more damage.
Yeah.
Whereas now that you've come out of it and you're looking out for other people who are going through it because of the support you didn't get.
Well, that's exactly why, because I remember when my daughter died, I was in I was in a rehabilitation center, and I had to put myself there so I wouldn't kill myself because I
Yeah,
knew I was going to kill myself. I had no shame about it.
yeah,
So I had to make sure that I was in a safe place so I wouldn't hurt myself, so I would still be alive for the kids that do need me. Um,
absolutely.
and I remember, they were trying to set me up with like grief support and all the things. And I went to grief support, and I went to these places, and the problem was every one that I experienced that was a professional, by the way,
Yeah,
didn't have a fucking clue what they were talking about.
yeah,
None of them knew what they were talking about. They weren't prepared. They hadn't experienced it. And I was like, fuck off, get me out of here. These
yeah.
people don't have any tools they can, or wisdom they can impart with me. They literally have no clue what is happening. And so for me, I'm like, I don't feel like anyone should have been as alone as I was during those times. And that's exactly that was the catalyst for that can't happen again. There's a gap here that needs to be filled.
100%. And what I love in what you just shared, there were actually two parallels to what we talked about.
Yeah.
When do you need clinical support versus
Yep.
traditional medicine? Hey,
Yep.
if you're on that train where if I
Yep.
don't fix something now, that validates it.
Right.
Second part is that's why so many people get disappointed by therapy and
Yep.
healing because you haven't found the right mentor.
Yeah.
Theory is amazing in certain elements if it's wired for the people who just need logical thinking,
Right.
but nothing beats personal lived experience.
Yeah.
So you can come now, and that's why now I love the work I do, even though it took such a long journey of recovery. I can sit in the puddle with you,
Oh,
and
totally.
I can catch you there and just go, no, we're not going to outrun this. We're
We
not
have to
going to
sit here.
think it. We're not going to affirm different things where we're not there yet. Let's actually just feel it for a
Yeah.
moment,
Yeah.
sink into what this means, and then together I'll give you a hand together we're going to get you out of it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because the thing is grief is so fucking sacred. It takes up
Yeah.
so much fucking space and it demands it. It doesn't ask politely. It is going to take it. And it's going to take it at all cost, right? So losing yourself, losing your job, it's going to take it if you don't give it free, like freely
Yeah.
give it. It's just going to take it. It's going to consume it. So you have to be able to face it, sit with it, and find those that can sit with you in it, and just hold space and have compassion.
I love that. So today, for this conversation, can we also just take a moment to lay flowers at her feet?
Oh yeah.
I am such a big fan of honoring the journey it takes, because I think a lot of the lessons we learn the hard way, why you become such a great space holder, be it in this conversation or for anybody who's going to experience loss in future, it's because through really hard lived experience. Nothing beats it. Hey, like in hindsight, it makes you epic, but in that moment, you really have to fight so hard on your own. So if
Mm-hmm.
you can just, like, full of recognition, actually visualize, or maybe even do it afterwards when you go somewhere, and literally lay flowers at her feet, to go, this is what it took of you, and I am so freaking proud that you went through it, and what you became as a result of it, and how you're showing up for your babies. Because at that time, yeah, maybe they couldn't get it and they're on their own journey, but
Mm-hmm.
with reflection, they will see how you rebuilt and who you became and how you turned pain into purpose and passion, and all that amazing stuff you're going to create as a result. You already are. As
Yeah.
a result, the conversations you're having, the impact you're having.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I think you're right. I think that, one of the I think one of the hugest honors I feel like I have now is that is the person I am now. The fact that my kids get to see who I am now and how much they support and love my mission. So,
And how much you love. Hey, because that's the flip side to grief. You
hmm
love that other human being so much, and that's the love you also have for them. It's
hmm
just that sometimes losing something, that's the pathway to get to the
yeah.
other side, right?
Yeah. Well, and I always explain too, like grief is really just proof of a really big love. That's really
Yeah,
what it is. And
yeah.
that's why it hurts so fucking bad. Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. Um, so you have 4 books.
I do.
Yeah.
Wow. Two more
Yeah.
coming right this moment. Yes.
Can you give us the titles or I think you have 2 of them with you,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if I can spend 30 seconds on each, just actually
Go
sharing
for
the
it.
journey or the mission behind it. Because for me, there were truly segments of my life, maybe the chapters I described. So
Okay.
the first book I wrote is called I See You. And ultimately, what it became was a journey of seeing myself. So that's the inconfident version that had to step into something new.
I
And
love that.
I packaged it in a love story fantasy that hopefully takes the reader on a journey of their own. But that's a book I wrote for 7 years. And the second I finished writing this book, this title came in, which I really didn't want to write. And that's From People Pleaser to Boundary Badass. And that's all the versions I had to become for the next section of my journey. And that was actually recognizing how often I please, and how that was impacting my life. And that's a very personal story. So that self-help includes a lot of my healing journey, which some people will agree and others won't with. I wrote a book that I don't have on me. That's a poetry collection, and that's Find Your Center. And that's the messiness between the two, anything from where I started talking about my own abuse and the stuff I had to work through, all the way to how I came out the other side. So I think the mission within that is hope.
hmm
I did a small kids poem that's Purpose Pause in His Little Adventures. I guess that goes in the direction of conscious parenting. And then I launched an empowerment journey, but that's for 2024, so that's outdated. And I think where that's going to take me now is continuing my studies. So I'm moving into counseling, psychotherapy, to then write a poetry book around all healing modalities that I experienced. And that's anything from mindful to somatic to clinical to therapy to like a combination of all I learned, and hopefully together jointly all my wisdom. And then I wrote a book with my boy when he was 9, which is a fantasy around courage and strength and maybe conscious parenting at its best when we got that one right. So that's a book that we need to rework, or he's done his part. It's now on me, and then bring to life together. But hopefully by then those two books, the big ones, would have made it somewhere,
Yeah.
that it sets him off in a really healthy, beautiful way of his own, and opens the next chapter for him in his life wherever he needs to go.
Awesome. I love the work you're doing. My friend Lee actually, he calls me the boundary queen. So I'm loving your boundary badass book already.
Learned the hard way, but one of the best skills
Yeah,
ever.
totally. Totally. I am often the person friends and my kids reach out to and go, how do I respond to this? How do I handle the situation? And so I've said many times that I just need to write a book and give really solid examples.
Please do, because I think that's how we learned. You touched on the should earlier. For me, should now means I don't want to.
Yeah.
In any time it feels like I should be doing that, that's really your cue. Unless it's like I need to pay the bills and hey, there's stuff that I need to take care of, need to feed the kids. That's different,
Yeah.
like a moment or two. But any time when it feels like something eh, is out of alignment.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair enough. Okay. Quick, fun questions.
Mm.
Morning or night?
Oh, both depending on the activity.
Okay. That's fair.
So I guess then the reason I answered it that way is if it's an early morning swim sunrise,
Okay.
I am most creative in the mornings. But if you ask me, I love staying up and being a night owl. So
Right.
sunset dance, always a winner.
Okay. Sage or silence?
Depending on the problem you have, sage if you need to cleanse, silence if you need to turn internal.
Okay. What's the most impactful book that you've ever read?
That I've ever read,
Yeah.
The Light We Lost.
Oh, I'm
Bawled,
actually going to
bawled
write that
my
down.
bawled my eyes out on a plane from one corporate conference to another. I couldn't wait to come to the hotel room to actually read the ending. I think that's the book that inspired me to write, because I thought if I could make one person feel what she made me feel in a time when I was really disconnected from my emotions, then that's a pretty epic thing to do.
Okay. And one word to describe your whole mission.
Empowerment
Oh, that's a great word.
of you and others. That's why actually, I
Yeah.
believe in choosing you is the most selfless act you'll ever do,
Yeah.
because it impacts others so much more.
I would agree with that. What do you think the most valuable takeaway from this episode is going to be for someone that's listening and looking to change?
There's probably going to be two. I think listening to your story will absolutely be the highlight for me, because I think I got to understand grief in a whole new way. But I'm hoping listening to both of our conversations that the takeaway is going to be, as hard as it feels right now, don't delay your healing, because there's freedom on the other side and there's purpose waiting for you. And hopefully that's what my writer's heart wishes for, is there's creativity
Yeah.
in whatever shape that expresses itself for you. But there's light on the other side. So wherever you are, I hope you find it.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that it's important that we add to that too, like, because if somebody's wanting to change and they're already like, where do I find the time? But there's little things you can do to start making it a practice. Small
1
things.
2 minutes per day,
Yeah. Yeah.
totally. It doesn't have to be long. One step after another. Build
Yeah.
yourself up. It's like a muscle
Yeah.
you train for your own mental
The
health.
point is just fucking start.
Yeah. Commit to yourself. Hey, I think it's actually just like choose healing for yourself and then for others, but for yourself first, to just keep going.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Tatjana, thank you so much for being here today. You're an absolute beautiful light, by the way.
Thank you for having me.
You're very refreshing. And I love all the work that you're putting out there. So thank you so much for being here and speaking to our audience. I'm going to go ahead and stop it here. So if you want to help me tell everybody goodbye. Bye, you
Absolutely.
guys.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for joining Own Your Essence. I am beyond grateful to our guests for sharing their wisdom and to you, our listeners, for being part of this journey toward healing and empowerment. If today's conversation resonated with you, please feel free to subscribe, leave a review, and share this space with others who might need it. If you have questions, topic ideas, want to be a guest, or would like to work with me privately, send an email. I'd love to hear from you.